I want to welcome Leah Monson to our virtual world. Leah is a graduate of Stout, a designer, and from what?
I graduated in 2012.
2012. Yeah. Okay, 2012 graduate. And I'll let Leah talk about, Leah's done many things with her creative self. So I'll kind of let from musician to design to painting now and etc.
Yeah.
and just welcome you back to Stout, and it's good to see you and hear your voice. And I'm excited to be a student now too, and
cool.
Just hear you do your thing. So Leah Monson, welcome.
Great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to a bunch of painters. I don't have that many people in my sphere that paint. Just to get a general gauge of things, so I'm an abstract painter typically. What am I working with? Do you want to just like either turn your mics on for a second and say like representational or abstract, or like who knows, or if you want to chat it just so we can sort of slightly tailor this to my audience.
Yeah, people can put in chat, just put painting 3 students. You could just put a couple words about what you're doing. My painting 2 students, yeah, they're like, who knows? I don't know. Painting 2 students, we are all abstraction for the whole semester. We're dealing with the A word, Leah. So it's new territory for me too. So it's super fun and uncertain.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, abstraction is my thing. So am I allowed to say that I wasn't a painting major?
Absolutely.
I wasn't a painting major, and I've only like recently come back around to it. Okay, all right, so we'll just click through this guy. Again, my name is Leah. I was a graphic design major, and I don't know if any of you are GD majors. I had Bill DeHoff, shout out, and I loved doing like hand-drawn things, letter form, and that sort of stuff, but when it came to anything digital, which is problematic, I would like freeze up and it wasn't intuitive for me. And I happened to be taking signage and exhibition design, I don't know if it's still called that, and painting 1 at the same time, just because painting is just like a random elective I chose for 2D. I was like, this seems fun, and I took it, and I was taking that at the same time as signage and exhibition design. And Charles Loom and Alex DeArmond happened to be carpooling together, and for some reason my work got brought up, and Alex was saying how much one of his students was struggling and just making poor, I don't know if these were his exact words, but just like poor work, wasn't clicking. And Charles was like, are we talking about the same person? Because I also have her in class, and she's just like, it seems very natural for her, blah, blah, blah. And so it's funny that these two happened to have a conversation about me and shared it with me. But I took that as a sign, like, maybe GD isn't the direction I want to be going. So while I did finish out my degree and do other things after school, I have made my way back to painting because computers are tough for me sometimes. Okay, so here's some of my painting 1 work. I feel like you can definitely see the graphic influence there. I spend a lot of time doing these really meticulous, clean lines with hard edges. And then the like mountainous image sort of to the left is sort of my first foray into like more abstracted things. Yeah, and then after school, I did all kinds of things. I had a baby, I worked at a farm, I ran a little like retail area in a maker space, I worked at Target Corporate, but all the while I tried to keep some creative practice going, and I did one of those like 100 days of making project, or there's like 365 projects. So this time I did 100 days of tiny art. So these were like 3 by 3 up to 5 by 5. And yeah, again, you can still see the like illustrative graphic influence here. And I have since shifted far from that. These are more from that 100 days of making. And I would really use whatever. So it was like sort of collage. I'd use a lot of markers. These are like oil bar and acrylic, which you're not supposed to do, but I did. And this sort of led me into making work like I make now. Here's some more from the 100 days of making. I think once I got away from using pens and markers, I was like remembering the things that I loved about painting and the movement in it, and like the potential in like having gushiness and texture built in to your medium. It's like when you have that, it automatically creates meaning and something to talk about for you. So yeah, that tiny project with a little work kind of led me to more what I'm doing present day. Entry points, when we talk a little bit about entry points, Tamara?
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay, so I tend to have too many works going on at the same time. And I don't know if that is feasible in the way that your projects are set up, but even if it's like you have your main work that you're plugging away on, your assignment, and then you have a sketchbook where you're like fleshing out ideas or just doing like hideous doodles that don't have to be anything, I think that's really beneficial so that you're not like pushing a work too hard in one direction because you have to keep working on it. So for that reason, I finish things incredibly slowly, but then I don't think I take anything too far in one direction. So at the end of this presentation, once I'm done showing work examples, I'll kind of outline some rules for painting that I made for myself to kind of keep myself going and to keep a structure to my painting, because I don't have any reason that I make paintings other than I want to. So it's not like these, I mean, some are commissioned, but rarely. Yeah, it's just like a calling that I have. So to give myself some guidelines is really helpful in terms of like starting new things or creating manifestos. Wonderful. In terms of starting new things, or in terms of like getting sketchbooks going, or even when I'm just sitting down to paint, or like how often do I want to paint, that sort of thing. Yeah, and these are predominantly pretty small works. Like these are both like 8 by 10, somewhere in there. But I do work a bit larger. I think the biggest I've done is like a 3 by 5 foot. But I tend to like tiny stuff. And given the space that I work in, I only have one full wall to create on. And yeah, again, in these you can see like I really like the graphic hard-edged things butting up against really painterly textural stuff. I love that juxtaposition. There's a lot of that in my work. I love color. I love layering things and opacities. And I tend to invite people to paint on my stuff. Like I have a 7-year-old and I'll let her make marks on my work. Because again, this is outlined in my rules for painting, but it's really nice to have someone make marks on your pieces that you wouldn't yourself make, so that it's like this new layer of challenge and it forces you to like address this totally new thing that you wouldn't have created. And that can lead to beautiful new forms of discovery visually. So this one on the right here was something I did as a birthday party activity. I just like had people go up and paint on it as they wanted to. So this started as like a group effort of like 10 people, and then I kind of honed it and finished it up. So it's the final work that you see. Here's 2 more of these guys. I've started framing things, building the frames myself, which is pretty satisfying. These are acrylic and oil. Again, I know I'm not supposed to do that, but sometimes when the right color of oil bar draws me, I just use it. Sorry, Tamara. Here's a couple more. Yeah, love me some graphic layers. Da, da, da. This one is behind me. And then this is the most recent piece I completed. Yeah, I feel like I love seeing like works 2D like that, but it's also nice to see the flesh and blood of what a piece, how it lives in a space. So this is that final guy. Yeah. Okay, and now I will jump to my rules for painting that I created. So the first one is don't get too precious with anything. So that I feel like I would, when I first started doing this, when I got away from the 100 days of making, and I was like, I'm going to make a painting, I would have one canvas going and I would just sit and stare at it for a really long time before making any moves. And I think that definitely works for some people, but I was getting too precious with it. And I made this nice little note. It says, put some time and space there and it won't be precious anymore. Not to say that it's not important, but like I would spend so much time trying to save this little corner that I did that I loved, that I would like work around it too much and sacrifice the betterment of the whole for it, just to make this one little corner look good, and then the rest of it was not as good. So even though you love that corner, cover it up, and you'll probably get a better result having done that. Yeah. Don't fight your environment. Allow it to shape and inform. So I work in this little studio off of my kitchen. And like I said, I only have the one wall to work on, so I can't really work large. So I've kind of, even though I like working big, I tend to just make tiny things now, and I've come to really love that. And how much that can bring. When you make one mark, it means so much more than if you're working on a big thing. You have so much more room to say so many things. So whatever that looks like for you, or if it's like time constraints, or you guys are all working at home, I would imagine. So what is it in your environment that feels like a problem, and how can you pull that in and let it inform your work instead of seeing it as a hindrance? You can't screw it up. That is such a freeing thought to me. Like I said, it kind of ties to don't get too precious. I just would be like, oh, that mark was wrong. I'm like, oh, well, I can palette knife that off and scrape it, or I'll take like scraps of fabric and just like lick the acrylic paint off, or totally cover it up. You can't screw it up. You would screw it up by not finishing the piece and addressing the part that you screwed up. So that's freeing. You can just, that is what's nice about painting. It's forgiving. It's not ceramics or sculpture and you hacked off a piece of whatever that you can't put back on. So just keep going with it. Underpaintings always. I think a lot of my early work suffered, or it could have been stronger had it had an underpainting. That one mountainous one I showed from painting one, I think I only used 4 colors in the entire thing because I would be sort of lazy about mixing or whatever reason, but stuff I do now I feel like has so much more richness, because even if you can't directly see the underpainting, it is like visually informing you in subtle ways, which I think is super, super important. So another thing I'm doing, which is helpful when I have multiple pieces going, and is cost effective, if I am working on a piece and I'm done with the color and I would normally trash it, I'll just like slap on an underpainting on a new canvas so that even if it's a color I wouldn't use, it has an underpainting and then the paint didn't go to waste. So underpaintings always. Use ugly colors. That is a good one because who doesn't like pretty stuff? And I tend to want to do my first layer as being beautiful and appealing right away. And I find that if I do that, then I don't push myself to keep adding layers, and I want to call it done a lot faster. And I think that is a detriment to my work. Whereas if I choose a color that I really hate, then it gives me my underpainting and it will automatically make it richer and more interesting because I want to cover it. Yes, okay. And then I wrote this little note at the bottom that says, it's in my sloppy handwriting, it's a simple and generous rule of life that whatever you practice, you will improve at. So that's really lovely. So I felt like when I was doing all these exercises and painting one, I was like, why do I have to paint this t-shirt again, or that sort of thing? But it's really nice to know that even though I don't paint representational work, I'm capable of it because I did that so much. And I feel like it does inform my work now. And every now and then I'll throw in a little representational something, which is interesting in the mix of abstraction. So yeah, just keep making work and you'll hit something that's right. So in terms of entry points, don't get too precious, don't fight your environment, you can't screw it up, always use underpaintings, and use ugly colors where you can. So yeah, I feel like when I am approaching a new piece, I don't want to get redundant here. Yeah, what can you do? Or every now and then, if you're 21, you could just like feel stuck on a piece, have a little glass of wine, and then just like make some marks because you feel a little more loose about it. I'm not saying do that all the time, but if I'm like really stuck on something, or again, that's where I invite somebody else in to like do something totally foreign to my natural mark making or whatever, just like an extra bit of something. Or that's where it's nice to have painter friends or like find inspiration from somewhere else, even if it's nothing like what you're intending to make. If there's like one thing you can glean from somebody else's work, Like I like how they, whatever it happens to be, you can incorporate that in the tiniest little way, and I feel like that can be helpful in taking pieces and bringing something new to a work. And then on the right side of this, I have this similar question format from this social practice artist that I love named Lenka Clayton. She does social practice, and I think she's an art educator in some capacity, and maybe a sculptor, but she has all these questions that she asks herself while she's working, and then 7 questions she definitely does not ask herself. And at the bottom, I like that she says, these are ongoing processes of observation and reflection rather than questions I'd use to interrogate an idea or work at an early stage. So yeah, getting in the habit of like asking yourself questions while you're working, I think is really helpful, especially if you have an isolated practice like you probably do because you're working at home, or I do. Yeah, like I said, I don't have a lot of painter friends. I have friends who are artists, but it's a different language. So if you have things that you can use similar to replicating a conversation with a person that you can just kind of have as an internal dialogue while you're working, I think that's very, very helpful. And I find that some of these will jump out more to me depending on the piece. Yeah, it's not even like I will write down the answers per se. It's just like, okay, I'm starting to work on a piece. I'll go through the list and be like, how can this be simpler if I'm really stuck on it? And kind of using them as prompts in your thinking or in your mark making or layers or however you're addressing something. Yeah, okay, I think that's what I got. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Can we, maybe, will you scroll through your images of your work again for us?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay, yes, that is most recent. I did this nice little photo shoot of this painting next to a dumpster by my house, a series of photos of this like polished work that was adjacent to all this garbage. It was again like another one of those don't keep it or don't let it be too precious ideas in my mind. Yeah, finished artwork next to junk. Okay, these were on MDF. They're just little guys.
I guess one of my questions is I see kind of similar shapes kind of reappearing again and again. You've got this kind of repeating notch or shape form. You've got kind of, I don't know, some organic, they're not ovals, but they're kind of sorta. You've got, and then your graphic. I don't, is your work purely kind of intuitive and formal? Or do you have like stories that evolve in your mind, with your, I don't know, can you talk about where your shapes derive from, if you know?
Sure. Yeah, I think for a long time I thought that my paintings had to be like about something, or this, people ask you a lot, like, what is it supposed to be? And yuck, I hate that question. Mom, okay. I love you, but so it's more about like what I'm thinking about as I'm making it. So it's wildly intuitive. I'll get to this question after, but someone asked about being a visual merchandiser. I feel like I approach painting and merchandising in the same way. It's like visual problem solving is how I think of it. It's like you add something and then assess and keep adding and reworking and reorienting the work until it feels visually right. It's like a gut thing that I have. So I guess there's not like a specific thing where the shapes come from. Every now and then, if I see something out in the world, or like, this is cliche, in nature or in somebody else's work, I'll like screen grab it or whatever, photograph it in some way and maybe try and loosely pull that in. But I feel like every time I do that, it always ends up feeling like contrived and like I pulled it from somewhere else and like plopped it into my thing. So it doesn't always feel right. I feel like I have more success when I just like try and not think about it too much, and just let my hands do it. And if I sit down to paint when I'm being like, I should paint, then I get the same results. Just like you can feel it, you can see that it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, in my mind. Yeah. Okay. And that's the end of the early work. Let's see, questions. Da-da. In your website bio, it says you are a visual merchandiser. What does having that title afford you? Wonderful question. I have the best job in the world, and it is wildly flexible. So I don't know if you've ever read Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, but she's always like, I didn't quit my day job until I had 5 New York Times bestsellers. I feel like that is a great piece of advice. Get all the stability you need, whatever that looks like for you, and then you can keep your artistic practice alive. Because otherwise, by trying so hard to be a painter or whatever you want to be, you'll choke the thing that is like giving you artistic energy. Okay, so visual merchandiser. I basically work for a third party that helps Target corporate make things look good. So Target buyers will or would come to our office and we would show them products and I would like build a display for them in an aspirational, inspiring way. So I have a salaried job and it's a row environment, which stands for results only work environment. So that means even though it's salaried, you don't have to hit a certain number of hours or work 9 to 5 or whatever. It's like when you get the work done, if you have to get the work done, it doesn't matter when or how, as long as you're like hitting your deadlines and doing a good job. So there's so much flexibility in that, especially since I have a child. So yeah, if I can get all my day job work done and paint, or if I want to paint during the day and do my day job stuff at night, then that is the beauty of finding a job like that. So yeah, I would say, yeah, have your money and your security wherever you can and hustle on the side or whatever the word you want to use is there. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. What do you do when you finish a painting and end up not liking it? Yeah, I feel like there are some that are just sitting in here that I've like beaten to the ground. And that goes back a little bit to my point about like put some time and space there and then it won't be as precious to you. Maybe you just need to like let it sit in your house for 3 years and then work on it again. Because it's hard to unsee what you know about it. So maybe it just means you're not done with that painting, or yeah, I guess I wouldn't say it's finished then. That would be my take on that. Yes, okay. Related to that, how do you know when to call a painting finished? Yeah, that is a tough one because I feel like it's a weird gut thing and I don't know what your guts are like. I guess I would say when all of the areas feel like they've been addressed. Let me see if I can point out some examples in here where I would say maybe not totally done. Okay, for example, I am calling this piece done, but if I were to go back and rework it for some reason, I feel like something in this area feels like it's too like soft and flat and like monotonous. So in that case, I would go back and like add some detail or some like crisp edges or something like that. So it's just making sure that everything is balanced, nothing sticks out too much or too little. Think about the colors you're using or not using, the scale of it. That's a tough one to answer, Zach. This is a gut thing. Yeah. Cameron, were you going to say something?
Well, I just have a question. You know, I look at your work, and some of it definitely, like the left one here, feels like a little more like it's all on the same surface. So in terms of pictorial space, it feels like very much like this is
Yes.
about painting on a flat surface.
Yes.
But then on the right one, I feel like you're alluding to pictorial space or depth. We've got those green semi-transparent shapes that we see, you know, the blue shape and that gold shape kind of tucked under.
Yeah.
Do you think about like space or flatness at all in your work?
Yeah, and that's been something I've been trying to address more and more with layers. I'll jump down to this one. I feel like this is all over the place in terms of depth because I think I was looking back at those old ones and seeing how they were like the same saturation, the same softness or whatever. So they're all sitting right here in the same plane and trying to grab your attention at the same time. So yeah, so then I feel like this one, when I incorporate like transparency or like really vibrant things or like super graphic lines that will pop out first. That's kind of when I start thinking about that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Ugly colors and using them. Do you think they're ugly versus, do you think they're also ugly versus not ugly forms? Cool question. I guess I would say they would feel ugly to me if they were like, I don't like geometric stuff. I like things that feel very organic and natural. So I would never like put a triangle on my work. Never. So I feel like unless I was trying to, like a good old rhombus, I'm like, no. Unless I was trying to like force myself to do something totally different, I just like couldn't bring myself to make something so representational. So even though I like those graphic lines, I just like wouldn't, yeah, ugly forms. Or I'm kind of over the like like spaghetti noodle, like squiggle lines and like arch shapes that are popular in like in popular contemporary painting, I guess I would say. If any of you know who like Ashley Mary Art is, I feel like those shapes, like I love her color palettes and the shapes, I like love them, but I can't bring myself to use them in the same token. So there's that. What process do you use to figure out your colors, or is it more intuitive? Yeah, I don't have a specific process per se. I guess my formula, if anything, is I really love like neutrals with like really vibrant pops of things. I also dress that way, like tan and brown, and then I have like a neon yellow hat on. Yeah, let's see. Like I said, ugly underpainting color helps. And then you can go over it again with something that you actually like. And I tend to reserve the like really saturated, vibrant stuff for more like little accents. Less so in this piece, but they're so commanding as a color anyway, so to make them large shapes makes less sense to me, but maybe that's an interesting creative constraint for you. That's art, right? There's no hard answers, but take what you will from this. What is your favorite way to apply paint? I really love these oil bars. You see these? Yeah. Or these guys. And again, I'm mixing acrylic and oil, but I love the movements I can get out of these guys. And I also really love globbing something on and then scraping it with a palette knife, and I do a lot of taping things off and then revealing these really clean marks. I do that a lot. Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's it. And then Ashley Mary is our next non-question question.
I just wanted to get the name out there.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. Anything else? Thanks for the questions. And if anyone wants to, here, I have my fancy slide with my fancy professional photo at the end. So if you want to reach out with a question, or if you want to come shadow me at work or show me your work or whatever, I'm down to talk about whatever.
That's great. Any last questions you guys have? Sarah, go ahead.
You seem like you're really on top of your website, just like I was looking at it earlier, and it seems very up to date and that you update it a lot. And that's one of the things that I struggle with. So I'm wondering if you have any tips about getting yourself to like post and keep an online presence.
Sure. Yeah, so I would say that job searching is such a drain on one's soul that even though I'm totally happy at my job right now, anytime I finish something new, I try and upload it to my website sooner rather than later, so that I like make sure I have all the files while I'm still working at that place, or while I'm still excited about it, get it up online, and so everything is fresh. So when it comes time to look for a new job, or if I lose this one for some reason, then I'm not also dealing with the drudgery of job searching and updating my website. Then it's just like everything's good to go. I just got to find the places. So, and then in terms of like Instagram stuff, I just like post what I'm interested in. That's less of a thoughtful process, but yeah, I'm actually gonna update my website some more. So take a look again soon. But yeah, I guess that's my advice there. Just like stay on top of it. Anytime you finish something new, upload it. Then you're doing one at a time versus 30 all in one go. Yeah. Like 10 minutes. Yeah.
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 It's less, yeah, it's just less stressful, and it's thinking forward. It's like that, weekly or monthly practice that you can just, have as part of your
Right.
ritual.
Right. And I'm excited about the work that I'm making, so I want to have another place to share it. So yeah.
Can you talk about collaborations you've done?
Sure. Let's see.
Yeah. Because you've talked about people painting on your work, or, but have you done any other artistic or creative collaborations?
Let's see. I think what spurred all of this was in painting 2, where we had to have an intermediate or an advanced painter paint on our work. I think that's what it was. And I had Sam Weinberg make marks on that work of mine. And after that, I was like, okay, this is something that I have to incorporate more often. Let's see. I have a couple painter friends that occasionally will do like quick fire rounds, just like have 2 canvases going, and then whoever just wants to like pop in and makes. It's Mia and our friend Justice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we'll make a lot of marks and get things out that way. Let's see, creative collaborations. Yeah, I guess painting is a pretty solo thing for me. In terms of like other creative projects, right now I'm doing something, it's a community supported art package. So I asked 9 other artists, and then I'm gonna do one as well, to create a piece to be replicated 20 times, or 20 original pieces, or however they want to break it down. And they're just donating their time and energy and resources, and then people can buy shares, and they'll get 10 original artworks. And then all the money is going to an organization here in Minneapolis called Zaka, which is a mutual aid org. So that's an artist collab of sorts, but not so directly. It's more quarantine friendly, but yeah.
Thank you. And so do you have certain just around painting or abstraction, or I love that you have rules for yourself. Like we're creating manifestos.
Cool. I love that.
I got on that last fall, just watching so many students struggle with the artist statement idea, and how that's really for the external. It's
Right.
not really for yourself at all. And so it's like how to set up something, I feel like a manifesto or your rules are something that you can lean on, that can support you when you're like, I don't know what the fuck to do right now. And to remind yourself what you're doing, what you care about, what your values are. So you don't get caught up in the shoulds of making.
Right.
So what about I guess, so we're all dealing with this abstraction world, and many of my painters are just like, I don't even know how to talk about it or respond to it and critique, what to ask or what to say. I don't know. What say you about just, is there anything you can use as an abstract painter to guide us in our quest here to wrap our brains around?
Yeah. It's so tricky, and I only took painting 1 and painting 2, and I feel like I learned immense technical skills in there, but I feel like so much of the conceptual stuff I've had to figure out on my own after school, and just by making things. And I had a lot of shoulds. I was like, my artist statement, I have to be making this about this, or this title I don't know how to title things. I guess like I said in the beginning, there's what I'm saying to you, take what resonates with you, and maybe none of it applies to you, but I feel like it's a lot of just navigating your own rules, and less about well, I read this, and so that means work needs to be like this, or about this, or for this, or this is what my practice should look like, sort of a thing. It's another vague answer, but it's about finding what works for you, and what modes of working are effective for you. And
Right.
Answer?
Yeah, and I think, yeah, and I don't know that there is an answer. I just wanted to kind of glean some thinking from you.
Yeah.
'Cause really ever since I've been teaching at Stout for 17 years, and, it was kind of the early days of social practice when I started in 2003, and that, the painters, I think, have long kind of been in this zone of like shouldness, in terms of like, do all of my, as a painter now in 2021, do I need to have some kind of like conceptual blah blah
Right.
social practice,
Me
blah,
too.
blah, or does my work need to be narrative and be like about deep thoughts and
Right.
concepts, like
Yes.
and painting is in it's such a historic mode, but then right, all of what's happening now, and then I just feel like painting is endless and
Yeah.
boundless, and we can do whatever the bleep we want. Really, I feel like we've got all the things as painters,
Yes.
but I don't
Yes.
know.
As soon as I got away from thinking that it needed to be something or that it needed to be meaningful or like I chose to use neon yellow because that was very freeing. I was like, oh no, I just started like thinking of it as like problem solving. I put this because it needed this. I did this, yeah, and that was enough like reason for me. It wasn't like this is about my relationship with my mother or whatever. Yeah, yeah, stuff like that. I was also going to show you some really like I feel like I would look at my stuff now, not that like, oh, my work's amazing, but uh, as a college student and be like, well, how do I get to somewhere where I actually like the work that I'm making and feel like work like this never existed? Like, what is that? Or I would make stuff that looked like this. Okay, there you go. This should be on your Nana's oven mitt. It's like, okay, those were some of my like 100 days of making, but those I don't know if you guys have watched or listened to the Ira Glass talk about beginners.
I did. Oh my
So
gosh.
incredible. It's so incredible, and I feel like college is when you need to hear that stuff. He's like, the thing about beginners is that nobody tells you is that like your taste level is so much better than your skill level for so long that so many people quit because you can see that it needs to be better, but you don't know how to get there, or it takes so long to get there that people quit in the interim. And yeah, you just like make crappy work and you're like, but I'm bad, and I can see that it's bad, but that means you're doing something. So just keep doing ugly things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna dig that up. That was like three years ago or something. But yes, I will find that
Yeah.
and share that with
It's a
students.
good one. And then Sarah asks, are there separations you see between painting and design? What are they, if so? Yes and no. I feel like more and more the separations between like painting and illustration and design are getting blurred. And I think like when I was in school, I was like, graphic design or design is computer work. Painting is only with these materials. But I'm like, there are plenty of applications for painting and illustration in design. So if you're a graphic design major, it's great to learn these other things. That's why I love that Stout blog has you do all these arts fundamental courses, because like at other schools like the U of M, they like art is one program and design is another program, and that blows my mind. It blows my mind because they inform each other so much. So I feel like just if wherever you are interested in any of those things, pursue it, and it can only make your work better by like if you're a painter, then you have a baller website and a great logo or whatever it happens to be. So yeah. Baller, oh.
That's perfect. Anything else before Leah signs off?
And yeah, again, feel free if you have any questions or want to show me work or whatever. I'm happy to talk about anything, even if it's not related to painting and college life or whatever. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. That's a very generous offer. And I just really appreciate your time today, Leah, and your thinking about yourself as an artist. I feel like you've got this language for thinking about just the balance of things, and really just owning the different facets of your making things identity, right? Whether it's your design part of yourself, or I know you're also a musician sometimes, right? Or as much, right? Or just you're
Yeah, I'm a dabbler.
right? I mean, but it all counts, and I think you manifest what you want to manifest, right? And I've appreciated that about you
Thank you.
all these years, and
Thank you.
yeah, and your mention of Mia thinks I probably need to invite her
Yeah.
next. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, I think we'll say goodbye because we've got some other things we need to
Great.
do. But thank you. It was so
Cool.
good to see you.
Good to see you too. Hope you're doing well.
All
Thanks
right.
so
Love
much
you,
for having
Leah.
me.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.